Welcome to Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio. Did you have a good weekend, Senator?
Yeah, it was good. Yes. We
Did
did
you
some
do
work.
anything?
What's that? Did I miss you? Yeah, I
Did you
missed you.
no, no, did you
Uh,
do anything?
of course, we worked. Yes. Yeah, we did a little, well, we cut some peas on Friday and then, worked on the combine a little bit yesterday and got it squared away. Grain's going to be probably in about a week. Spring wheat should
Mm.
be, some of it will be ready to cut, I think, maybe, but I usually get in too early anyways, cut a bunch of wet wheat and then have to dry it down, but it's good.
So you just make problems for yourself by doing that, right?
That's
Haste
correct.
makes waste.
Uh, my dad always said when the wheat looks like you're going to go cut it, you should go on vacation for a week, and he was correct. But
Ah, okay.
never,
So you gave me a lot of grief for spending so much time in the woods looking for morel mushrooms, which
yeah.
is one of my favorite activities. Well, this weekend we did this huckleberries.
So the question is how many hours is in that pan right there?
A lot. Probably well, okay, so we went out, to my spot, which was great a few weeks ago, but people went up to this spot. Huckleberries, they grow a lot of them grow in Montana, Idaho, Pacific Northwest for people who've never had huckleberries. They're really delicious. Uh, I'll have one. But my spot was great a few weeks ago, and somebody went through and used those rakes and just, like, tore all the bushes to shreds. So they were really picked over, the plants were damaged, but we found some. This this bowl probably took me 3 hours.
It's good. Did you see any grizzly bears?
Not I didn't see any, but maybe they saw me, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Well, you can make some dynamite stuff out of those huckleberries. My wife makes a salad out of huckleberries. It's right next to a dessert that you can have, like when you're eating your steak, you can have this salad with it. And it's pretty good.
Well, okay, so this is something we've talked about, and I need to send a text to Charla because I really wanna have her on to talk on our show to talk about
Cooking.
recipes.
Yeah.
Cooking, yeah, 'cause, people clamor for her recipes. She needs her own show.
She's a pretty good cook. Yeah. She's good.
Mm. Alright, well, we're gonna get into some headlines here. We recorded a conversation yesterday, but we talked to Ned Price. He was an intelligence officer, deputy to the U.S. ambassador to the UN, advisor to the Secretary of State, spokesperson for the State Department. He held senior roles at the National Security Council and the CIA during the Obama administration. He has a lot to say about what's happening right now, specifically some of the very serious allegations being thrown at former President Obama. So we had that chat yesterday. It was great chat. We're gonna release it today.
Yeah, it was a good conversation. It talked about all the damage that the Tulsi Gabbard had done, the national security director of national intelligence, has done to both the truth, because the truth is the only thing those folks have. And she has pretty much botched that up pretty bad, and the impact it's had on not only the people of the United States, but also on our allies that tend to feed us information when they trust us. And this just leads to a lack of trust. So, bad decisions. Um, Understand why she did it. She's trying to get back into good graces, and they're trying to pivot off Epstein and all sorts of other things that are going on. But we'll get into that during the conversation.
Yeah, it's a great chat. So make sure to check it out later if you are watching live with us on Substack right now. But we wanted to go over some Monday morning headlines, over some coffee with you guys. All right. So we have an agreement made between President Trump and the EU to impose a 15% tariff on products from the EU. I'm not going to call this a deal because even though it's less than the previously threatened 30%, 15% is a lot more than the 1% that tariff averaged out, before Trump became president again for the second term. There are some exceptions for certain egg products and aircraft parts, but a lot of people are calling this a deal.
Well, let's just look at it from average consumer standpoint. Your taxes were increased by 14% on any imported goods from the EU. Before they were nearly zero. and the president has cut a deal to increase your taxes. That's basically the bottom line. Um, and remember when this started out, it was we're going to do tariffs to hold China accountable. And now we're putting tariffs and increasing taxes on American citizens and putting tariffs on our friends in the country. This is uh, this is a lose-lose situation, and I'm sure he's going to say, no, 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 no. The EU is paying these tariffs, but that's total bullshit. The tariffs are being paid by you and I, the consumers in the United States, and so it was a 14% increase in our taxes.
Okay. Well, we'll see more more that comes out of it. It's interesting to see some of the commentary about that already. Meanwhile, president meeting right now with British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer in Scotland. The PM is expected to bring up the dire circumstances happening in Gaza. And when asked this morning already by reporters if Trump agrees with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that there's no starvation in Gaza, Trump said, not particularly, adding that he thought those children looked very hungry. If you've seen the photos, you know they look more than hungry. Israel says it's going to start pauses in fighting to let aid in. Many agencies say that's not enough to handle what's happening. Meanwhile, Trump blasted the EU on Gaza, and he said over the weekend that the U.S. gave millions of dollars for food. Nobody gave but us, and nobody said, gee, thank you very much. It would be nice to have at least a thank you. Those were his comments.
Well, it'd be really nice if the food got to its point where it's needed, and that's to feed these folks in Gaza that are literally starving to death. Look, this has been going on for a long time. This was going on when I was in the United States Senate, and Netanyahu said repeatedly that he was going to pause to let food in, but it's just not happened. And this is ridiculous, and they need to do something about it. And the administration is the one that's taken all the power from Congress, so we don't expect Congress to step up and do jack shit. But the administration needs to, and they need to hold Netanyahu accountable. He is not a good actor, and it's what's going on over there is horrible, absolutely terrible. And it's great the United States is giving food, and we should be thankful for it. But when the food doesn't get to where it needs to go, that's a wasted resource. And this whole comment brought up by many of the Republicans on the Sunday show that Hamas is stealing this food and selling it is totally made up. If that's happening, it's happening minusculely. It isn't happening to the degree that they're talking about. 500, I think $500 million is what Speaker Johnson said that Hamas has profited off the food that they've stolen and sold it to who? I don't get it. The truth is that we ought to be dealing with facts, and the facts are that these people need food. Israel has pretty much devastated Gaza. I haven't seen any buildings that haven't been hit with bombs. It's time because people are starving to death. This is a bad deal. Bad
Well, we've
news.
seen so many headlines of people lined up for food and being fired upon by tanks
Yep.
at those food checkpoints. And then we
Yeah.
have the U.S. government that incinerated, I can't remember how many tons of those nutritional biscuits that they were supposed to disperse. They just incinerated them. So there's a lot happening around that. And we're getting more firsthand accounts this morning, more on top of what we've already heard of what it was like for the 250-ish Venezuelan men who were sent to the CCOP prison in El Salvador. 3 asylum seekers spoke with NBC News. They said that they were sexually assaulted and abused in that prison. One man said he was forced to perform oral sex on guards. They described being repeatedly beaten. Their shackles were so tight they cut and bruised them just by walking. One man said a prison guard actually encouraged them to commit suicide. And these men maintain they are not criminals. They were just migrants, despite the administration saying that they are tied to violent gangs. A New York Times investigation found most of them who were sent to CCOT didn't have any criminal records in the United States. Meanwhile, the administration is doubling down. They keep saying that they will continue to send people to this prison. with these reports coming out, the prison in Florida, Guantanamo, or elsewhere, and we are seeing some of these men start to file lawsuits against the U.S. government. And we just need to mention, because we have to mention when we discuss things like suicide, that if you or someone you know is in crisis, you can call or text 988. So, yeah, these reports are just, they are hard to read.
Yeah, these are people, and to be, I mean, what a bunch of sick bastards, beating them, forcing to commit oral sex, for Christ's sakes. It's unbelievable. Uh, and they're probably taking some of those tariff dollars that we're paying to pay for this El Salvador prison. These are taxpayer dollars that are going to pay for this prison. We're better than this as a nation. Uh, this this should not be going on. People need to hold the president accountable. And once again, where's Congress on this issue? Where are they doing any investigations? Are they holding any hearings to get information? Not a peep. Not a damn peep. Because they're afraid of the president.
So that's a question I have. Like when
Real
reading this,
real shitty reason to be in Congress, by the way.
I just if I were hearing these accounts
Yep.
and there was somebody taken from Montana when I was
Yep.
working for the local station here, and I called your office when you were a senator and I said, "Hey, we are hearing reports of this, 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 and this." I mean, what would that look like? Would you in my experience, when I've called these offices, they look into it if they hear something like these accounts.
They're supposed to. They're supposed to be responsive to their constituents. And you're a U.S. senator, so you could argue that everybody in the United States is one of your constituents, even though they're focused on their states as they should be. But yeah, I mean, even to have hearings. I mean, if look, if the Republicans aren't going to join in, and I think there's some that would if you give them an opportunity to have hearings, then do a hearing on your own. Uh, Ask these folks to come in and talk about what's transpired. I mean, you got to get information out, man. And if this is actually happening, and if you had a hearing, you could ask them and get to the bottom of it. But if this is actually happening, it's unacceptable, flat unacceptable. But I mean, beyond unacceptable. And so, getting to the bottom of it is part of Congress's job to find out what's really going on. But once again, nothing. But you're right. If somebody calls into an office, um, and it's real, and they have a legitimate problem, yeah, you've got, I had 35 people that work for me. You put one of them out to start digging up some information and make sure they're doing it, and then you deal with it. If it's unjust, you deal with it in a way to try to stop it. I don't know.
Okay, well, it seems like the president is going to continue to go after legacy media outlets because in a Truth Social post this weekend, Trump went after more news outlets saying, quote, networks aren't allowed to be political pawns for the Democrat Party, not the Democratic Party. It has become so outrageous that, in my opinion, their licenses could and should be revoked. Is this the next step? Are we going to start seeing FCC licenses being pulled from networks?
What's the consequences for the president doing that? I mean, what are the consequences? If there are no consequences, then I would say yes. If Congress wants to step up and hold them accountable, then I would say no. But Congress has been AWOL for 6, 7, 8 months now, and so that's it. I mean, the truth is, uh, we've seen this before, where real news is classified as fake news, and fake news is classified as real news, and you take away freedom of the press, you kiss your democracy goodbye. And if that's what we're doing here, it's crazy. And by the way, I don't mind anybody calling the party Democrat Party. I don't. That doesn't bother me a damn bit. In
It's
fact,
supposed to be Democratic Party.
well, I don't, I don't really see what It's easier to spell Democrat instead of Democratic. It's two letters that are unnecessary. I mean, I'm telling you,
Uh,
I don't have an H in John for a reason. The H is unnecessary. So just leave
get
the
the
I
H
off.
out of
It's
there.
okay. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So it's
Well,
okay.
some of my grammar nerds will agree with me on this one, but
They probably will. I did not get good grades in English. In fact, it's it's my second or third language anyway, and I don't have a first one, so it's good.
It's farm jargon. Yeah, I mean, I think that, I'll weigh in on this one a little bit more than I usually do. There's a reason that I'm sitting on Substack with you here this morning, and it's because I was laid off, and many people who are journalists have been laid off or getting laid off. And what my network cited for the reasons in cuts was that people did not want the advertisers did not want to advertise with these news outlets because they were afraid of political retribution. They were afraid of, making people mad. And I think that in some ways we're seeing the writing on the wall here. There's concern about what the second Trump administration would do if they didn't like some of the coverage, and we're seeing it play out. Um, I I'm really concerned about the future of journalism in this country, and I think that's why independent journalism, like what we're doing here, like what so many of our friends are doing, on Substack who we've talked to, that is really what's so important right now.
Getting information out is good. If you got good information, you make good decisions. And the president is surrounding with a bunch of people who are so loyal. What did they call them? Fealty?
Fealty, that was what, John Bolton said. It's not
John
about
Bolton said,
loyalty, it's about fealty.
you
Yep.
know, and giving him information that he wants to hear instead of the facts. And it impacts what he says, it impacts what he does, and it impacts decisions that are made. And if you don't have good information, you don't make good decisions. And that is a fact of life.
You know, Senator Tester gave me a little bit of hell for this shirt I'm wearing because I'm wearing a shirt that says University of Montana School of Journalism. He said that's a good place to go if you want to get laid off.
Well, I mean, I was just speaking the truth in this case. Okay? But the truth is, we need good journalists. They're important. They're
We
important.
do.
Speaking
And
truth to power is important.
University of Montana School of Journalism is one of the best. I will plug it. All right, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the topic that just continues to take up all the oxygen in the room, especially on the Sunday shows. Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Mike Johnson, House Speaker Mike Johnson, went on Meet the Press. He told NBC's Kristen Welker that a Ghislaine Maxwell pardon would give him great pause. Of course, this is after Todd Blanche went and held 2 days worth of conversations with Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted accomplice to Jeffrey Epstein, who has, it's been, she's trying to fight her conviction with appeal. There's been a lot of chatter about if the Trump administration will give her a pardon for her information for speaking. Uh, I don't see a good path forward here. I don't think any path forward is going to satisfy the people clamoring for answers. What do you think?
I think that's the point. I think the point is, I'm not sure it's going to satisfy the folks who want answers on Epstein. As far as Mike Johnson said, give him pause. What that's saying is, if he does it, he'll pat him on the back and say, "Good job," because that's what he does. But no, I don't think. I think actually, I think that if he gives a pardon, I think it just pours gas on the fire. Makes it much more obvious that somebody's covering stuff up.
That's the thing, there just doesn't seem to be a winning path here, no matter what the administration does. If he pardons her, that's not gonna be good. If they don't release information, people are going to continue this, making things up to fill in the gaps. If they release information that's redacted, that's not gonna be good. I don't see a good end game here, but, I'm waiting for information. We're hopefully having an episode later this week all about this. But
I got a great path forward. Just release the damn list. That's a great path forward.
yeah, but is that a good path forward for this administration?
Well, I think it's the only path forward for the administration. I think if they don't, they become part of the deep state.
Well, they are the government right now. Like, when they talk
Uh,
about the government, it's them.
It is them. There's no doubt about
So,
it.
The deflection, though, continues, and this is where we're going to pivot into today's guest in our conversation that we'll release in a bit. Um, there were so many posts happening on True Social over the weekend. I kind of dug through them so you don't have to. I'm sure a lot of you have seen, though, um, a lot of these posts. The president called for the prosecution of Kamala Harris, Oprah Winfrey, Al Sharpton, and Beyonce in one post. And in all caps, he said, "You are not allowed to pay for an endorsement. It's totally illegal to do so." Went on a rant there. This was after he posted a meme going after former President Obama. He put this cartoon up, and it was basically President Obama in a white Bronco to look like O.J. Simpson. And you have Donald Trump in a police car pursuing him. And on the other side, you have JD Vance, and it's like the really cartoony joke version of JD Vance with the perm, and he's chubby and he looks like I don't know. Somebody help me out. What does he look like? An Oompa Loompa or something, following along. And so he posts this meme out there, and JD Vance reposted it with a chuckle, but there's definitely some deflection going on. They're trying to say, look at Obama, look at all of these things, look at Beyonce, look at Oprah. I, I, I don't know what to say.
Hey, look, when you point your finger at somebody else, you got three fingers pointing back at yourself.
What if
Somebody's
he
trying
point
to,
the other hand?
well, except for me, I can do it and not have three fingers pointing back at myself. You're right. I stand corrected. But bottom line is yeah, a lot of pivoting, and you're not allowed to pay for an endorsement. It's totally illegal to do it. People, what the hell is he talking about there? I mean, I don't understand what he's talking about. It's illegal for Oprah to donate to campaigns. Is that what he's talking about?
I don't have an idea because the thing is, I don't think Oprah required payment for her endorsement of Kamala Harris.
Hell no, no,
Nor
no.
nor do I think that Beyonce did.
That's not how endorsements work.
Maybe in their world it does. I don't know.
Well, maybe it is. That's true. You're right.
And he was talking about how they owe money, and I'm pretty sure he still owes money from his visits to Montana when he held rallies here. I'm pretty sure, if we're talking about owing money.
Yeah, I would bet you that the police departments in the respective towns, when he came in 18, half a dozen times, or how many times he came, and then again in 24, I would bet you they haven't seen a nickel.
Uh, yeah. So here's the deal. They're going to keep talking about Obama. And he's playing the hits. He's playing his greatest hits, right? And so it came up on the Sunday shows. And we have Senator Lindsey Graham basically doing a 180 because previously he talked about the investigations into Russia influencing our 2016 election in a different tone. And now he's advocating for an investigation into whether Obama influenced an intelligence report about this Russian interference. So this is basically what our whole episode is going to be about today, our whole conversation with Ned Price. And while Graham says he's not calling for the prosecution of Obama, he is calling for an investigation. And as we go over at our conversation with Ned Price, there have already been several investigations into this, bipartisan investigations, in fact.
What's really rich about this is he calling for an investigation into the impacts of the tariffs and what's going on in the prison in Salvador. Is he talking about having an investigation into Signalgate? I mean, the list is long. No, he wants to do an investigation, I guess, of an investigation that was done nearly 10 years ago on a bipartisan report that came out. It's absolutely 100% deflection. The sad part about this is Lindsey Graham does know better. And I don't know how the hell he sleeps at night. I just don't know how he sleeps at night because he knows better. He understands exactly what's going on and he understands exactly what he's doing. That's not true with all the senators. Some get on national news and actually believe the stupid shit they're saying. Lindsey Graham knows better.
Okay, so today's guest joins us now. It's Ned Price, and he was an intelligence officer, deputy to the U.S. ambassador to the UN, advisor to the Secretary of State, and a spokesperson for the State Department. He's fit a lot in. He also had senior roles at the National Security Council and the CIA during the Obama administration. And he recently wrote an op-ed for Fox News calling the Trump administration's latest allegations against former President Obama a dangerous distraction. So we'll dig into that more, but we want to say welcome to Ned.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to see you both.
Okay, Chester, you want to start us off or you want me to start us off?
Well, let me. What the hell? You give me the option. Of course, I'm going to say yeah. I'll go first because you always get the last word. And Ned, it's good to have you on. Hey, um, we've seen uh, we've seen the director of national intelligence over the last week come out with all sorts of claims. Now, we probably all each have different reasons why she would do such a thing for personal reasons and to try to pivot.
Yeah,
But more importantly, um, tell me what the danger is. And
yeah,
I think it's quite obvious on the director of national intelligence, which is a pretty damn important position,
yeah,
starting to spew shit that isn't backed up by facts.
yeah, yeah. I have had to laugh over the past week, maybe to avoid crying or being in despair. But on one level, it's not all that surprising over the past week to have heard, a prominent figure come out and talk about a shadowy cabal of some of our country's most elite, most powerful, engaged in sordid, shocking crimes, and then engaging in a cover up to hide their tracks. But as you alluded to, Senator, the problem is in this case, it is Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence. And she's not talking about Jeffrey Epstein and the scandal engulfing her own administration. She's talking about the 2016 election, of all things, and President Obama, and just raising some really outrageous charges and baseless allegations against him. It's a really good question. It's a really good place to start because I think it's one of the elements that even if, as Americans sort of know this is wrong and sort of shake their heads as they watch this, they may not fully appreciate the implications of this. The director of national intelligence, there is nothing more important to that role and to the organization really as a whole than credibility. And I mean that really in two senses. Number one, the credibility and the trustworthiness is important to our international partners and allies. And look, our intelligence community, it is really the kinds of information it can collect. It is truly mind-boggling, and we have our own capabilities, of course. But what serves as a force multiplier for our intelligence community, and what gives us so much of the knowledge that helps the intelligence community keep the American people safe and secure, comes from our international allies and partners. There are foreign intelligence services and law enforcement services, security services all around the world that are collecting information every single day, sometimes in their own country, sometimes, in far-flung places of the world, passing it to us. And they're passing it to us because they believe that we will be able to keep that safe and that we are trustworthy and that in turn we will help them. It's sort of this self-reinforcing and mutually reinforcing pact we have with countries around the world. When the director of national intelligence goes out and leads countries to believe that her motives may not be in the best interest of the United States, and certainly not in the best interest of our partners and allies around the world, I think calls that relationship, that sort of globe spanning network of relationships into question. And it will really start to erode the trust and the credibility that has been the glue between us and our partners and allies around the world in terms of those intelligence relationships. And in turn, will redound on the American people because we're not going to get the kind of information that our government needs to continue to keep us safe and secure. But there's also a second element of this, as I alluded to, and that's the relationship between the intelligence community and the American people. And this has been, almost since its inception, a frayed relationship or a difficult relationship. Certainly at times, we've gone through difficult chapters between the American people and the intelligence community. And someone of my generation, I joined the CIA almost right out of college in 2006. And it was in some ways fresh off the 9/11 intelligence failures. And even, I think more pointedly for me, 2003 and the 2002, 2003 pre-war Iraq intelligence experience. And over the past 20 plus years, the intelligence community, over the course of both Democratic and Republican administrations, has gone to great lengths to try to restore that credibility, that trust with the American people. And to have the director of national intelligence come out in a purely partisan attack dog mode and to make these allegations and to really put a partisan spotlight on her and even more damagingly her office, I think undoes so much of that. And so the next time, we need our top intelligence and national security officials to come out and to wave the red flag and say, we've got this pressing challenge and we need Americans to understand it and to come to terms with it and to support whatever the policy decision is. It's going to cause a larger and larger segment of American society to question the motives, to question the just how genuine the threat is, and to question whether they should be listening to the director of national intelligence, who in this case has portrayed her as nothing more, unfortunately, than a partisan hack, a partisan shill.
So to boil us down, basically what was found with the 2016 election is that uh, Russia Russia did things short of changing the vote. They did some things to try to influence so that they could influence the election to Trump's benefit. Is that a fair statement to make?
It's a fair statement.
Yeah.
And
So
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 much.
so let me
Go
ask
ahead.
you this: you talked about the domestic challenges. Let's talk about our partners. Do
Yeah.
you think our partners, our allies in the country, were part of how we got to that conclusion? Do you think they gave us information that would indicate that Russia had some impacts on our election in 2016?
There is no question. Look, 2016 was the first time we faced Russian interference on this level in the United States. But unfortunately, so many countries around the world have had decades worth of experience
Yep.
with these kinds of tactics. And
Absolutely.
so they know that and they passed on. I am confident in saying so much of what this assessment was based on.
I'm also confident in you saying that because I think that's absolutely what transpired. I think the United States had their intel. I think they grabbed hold of their partners and they got additional intel. So let's look at this whole thing. What Tulsi Gabbard has done over the last week, basically, from the eyes of our allies. They're looking at this going, she's lying. She's not telling the truth. She's not being honest with the American people, and she's not being honest with the world. And I think that reverts right back to what you were talking about when we put faith in other people to help us with our intelligence. We just had the defense folks on that do the defense appropriations bill, and they said, look, one of the things that make us strong as a nation is our ability to have partners around the country. So when we need help, we call them up and they step up and they help us. It's no different in the intelligence world, is it?
It is precisely the same. It's precisely the same. We would be uh, impaired. Our ability to detect, to disrupt, to thwart threats to our national security would be dangerously impaired were it not for the kinds of information that we are getting on a daily basis, on a near constant basis from our partners and allies. Some of those are countries you might imagine our closest allies, the UK, France, others within NATO, but there are a whole host of countries with whom we may not have the best diplomatic relationship, but they trust our intelligence community and they have trusted the leaders of the intelligence community and they have relationships that sort of facilitate that information sharing that again is so vital to our national security. I
So to
think
put this in real text, and I'm going to turn to you, Maurice, is so if there's a terrorist attack that's planned on the United States, which they've thwarted many of them, other countries are going to look at this and go, this director of national intelligence isn't real. She's not dealing with a full deck of cards here. why should we be passing information on to her when she's going to distort it? Is that is that a fair statement to make, or is that an overstatement?
It's not an overstatement at all. Within the intelligence world, again, nothing is more important than credibility. Nothing is more important than trust. Both of those things are very hard won and very easily lost. And in so many of these cases, those intelligence relationships are predicated on relationships of decades. But to see something like this and to have this register with our partners and allies and even countries with whom we don't have the closest of diplomatic relationships, to have them witness the top intelligence official in the United States engage in this kind of purely partisan, purely political hackery, it calls into question the type of relationships that we have to have, that they feel like they need in order to pass on, in what is many cases, their most closely guarded, most sensitive secrets. And so I worry that what Tulsi Gabbard is doing here will not only cause damage, sort of partisan political damage, and erode trust within the American people, but she could be causing generational damage to the types of relationships that have helped to keep us safe over the course of many years now. It's going to be very, very difficult for the intelligence community to re-earn, to regain the kind of trust that has really been at the core of those relationships.
I think the term gaslighting comes to mind here.
Yeah,
And, I think that we see that a lot right now, whether it's, I have the list on my desk to there is no list, now to this. I mean, I don't think that we can ignore. I mean, it's important context for our viewers and listeners to talk about the fact that this was not a partisan issue, that in fact, a bipartisan Senate investigation that was released in 2020 punctuated all of the intelligence agency's findings here that Russia interfered in 2016. I mean, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who was senator at the time, said, quote, "This assessment is accurate. It's 100% accurate. The Russians interfered in our elections." So I guess when we talk about this and we talk about the motives, is this strictly, I mean, what do you think the motives are? Is it strictly to deflect from Epstein? Is it for, Tulsi Gabbard to get back in good graces with the president? Is it, I mean, why now? Why now? Is
yeah,
it because during the first administration, there were safeguards and people who wouldn't cross certain lines and now those are gone? Like, why
yeah.
now?
So, two things, and I want to pause for just a second on what you said to emphasize it. This is not a question of she said, he said. Tulsi Gabbard says this. One intelligence report says that. This is the question of she is saying everyone else who has ever looked at this has said. And to your point, the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee that was led by Al Secretary of State, a National Security Advisor, a National Archivist, and USAID Administrator Marco Rubio came to the very same conclusion. Bob Mueller, in his role as special counsel during the first Trump administration, came to the same conclusion. John Durham, who, as another special counsel, looked at a related aspect of this during the first Trump administration, came to the same conclusion. The Trump administration itself, the intelligence community, in the context of the 2020 election, actually said that the Russians, in the context of late 2020, were seeking to denigrate then candidate Biden and to advantage President Trump. And then I think something that's been overlooked, John Ratcliffe, who was DNI for a time during the first Trump administration, who, of course, is CIA director now, released a report just a month or so ago, 6 weeks ago, that laid out a whole bunch of alleged problems with the process, but didn't call into question the fundamental conclusion of the intelligence community report in question from 2017, that Russia interfered, and they did so to advantage Donald Trump. So there is, to call it a body of evidence and a body of reporting really understates what we have. But it gets to your question of motive. Why is Tulsi Gabbard doing this now? And I think two of the potential motivations you raised are key. Number one, look, Tulsi Gabbard has been in the doghouse, I think, almost since the start of the Trump administration. And it really became the most pronounced in the run up to the Trump administration's bombing campaign in Iran. You probably remember she released this sort of cryptic video warning of again a cabal of elites leading us to the brink of nuclear Armageddon. It became clear after the campaign in Iran that she was probably warning against the Trump administration's impending war plans to go to war with Israel in Iran. And of course, that got her on the wrong side of President Trump. President Trump at one point basically said, I don't care what she says, what Tulsi Gabbard says. And really dismissed her. And now you look at what's happened over the past week or 10 days. President Trump, I think, said something like she's the hottest one in the room right now. She's clearly back in his good graces because of this what is a very obvious effort to pander to him and for him. But I think the other motivation is also just as transparent, and that is an effort to distract, and it's an effort to distract primarily from the Epstein allegations. The irony is that back in the spring, I think it was March, the Trump administration said that Tulsi Gabbard would be part of the group of senior administration officials working with Pam Bondi and others who would, amass these files, put them together, and release them. Of course, that hasn't happened, and instead of that happening, we now have this effort to say there's nothing to see here. You got to look over here. This is the real scandal, and she has, in order to do that, basically fabricated a scandal out of whole cloth. The Trump administration has, over the course of the first term and 6 months of the second term, been in office for 4.5 years. They had 4.5 years to make these outrageous allegations. And the fact that they chose to do so at the height of the frenzy over Jeffrey Epstein, as these news accounts come out that President Trump has been in the files, that he was notified that he was in the files, as various outlets gather additional evidence of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. It's no accident. It's no coincidence that she went to the White House podium and started releasing these files over the course of the past week. She is, in a sense, doing precisely what she was put in the position to do by President Trump. And I say that meaning a director of national intelligence shouldn't be doing this. Under any other president would nominate someone who has the national security chops, the credibility, the experience in the realm. Of course, he installed Tulsi Gabbard, not because she had any of those things, but because she would be loyal to him, and she would recognize him as her political benefactor, and basically her meal ticket. Not only in her current role, but of course, there's been a lot written about her potential aspirations to assume the role of commander in chief in 2028 and 2029. So I think she is paying him back for putting her in this cabinet role, and she is doing so in a way that is clearly part of an effort to distract from what is engulfing this entire administration, and for good reason.
Yeah, but just one thing, I just want to back up to what Maritza said earlier. You're 100% correct. This is all about deterring, put the focus in a different direction.
Yeah.
But in the first 4 years, there was never a director of national intelligence this incompetent, quite frankly. And I think that adds to it. When you really don't know what the hell you're talking about, it's easy to talk about stupid shit, really.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's exactly the problem here. There's no blocks in place. I don't know if that's the right term, Maritza. You got a better one for it, but there's nothing holding these folks on the tracks, because they don't care about the tracks. They'll go anywhere they want. They'll say anything they want. They'll do anything they want. And look, president's feeling a lot of heat over this Epstein stuff. He's feeling more heat on this than he has on anything else, in my opinion. So they're going to react the same way. They're going to say the most outlandish crap, whether it was bipartisan or not, that the reports that came out. But I will tell you this. I remember after the 2016 election, it was sometime in early 2017, I was talking to Mark Warner, and Warner said to me then that the investigations were going on. He was very high up on the Intel committee. In fact, was chair my last session in the Senate. He's still on the Intel committee. I think he's ranking member on it. He said Russia interfered with this election. and they did it for less than the cost of an F-35.
Hmm. Yeah.
F-35 is an expensive airplane, by the way, but far less than the cost of an F-35.
Yeah.
And so those were dollars well spent from Russia's opinion. And you can say, well, why would they want this president over another president? And by the way, Putin, who has been known to tell a lie or two himself, says, I didn't care who won. Bullshit. He didn't care who won. He knows who he can manipulate. He knows who he can roll. There's no doubt about it. We've seen it happen.
Yeah.
And so this all is just so damn crazy because it's taken sorry, I'm talking too long. Go ahead,
No,
Marisa.
no, you're
Well,
not talking too long. Go ahead, Ned.
to your point, Senator, this was a relatively cheap operation for Russia. But what Tulsi Gabbard and her allies in this administration have done to and for Russia over the past several weeks is basically to provide an in-kind contribution to Moscow. And I say that because you have to remember that Russia's campaign had three prongs or three motivations. One was to denigrate Hillary Clinton at the time. One was to advantage President then candidate Trump. And one was to divide the American people, to provide this sort of divisive fodder that would tear at the fabric of American society and pit Americans against one another based on our political allegiance, various hot button social issues. And to put the spotlight on this and to make these outrageous allegations and to accuse the former president of treason and a sinister conspiracy theory, I think we have to recognize that Tulsi Gabbard is doing more than the Russians ever could have aspired to do to tear Americans apart, to really pit us against one another. And so, in a way, she is really propagating the conspiracy that Russia started in 2016, and she is, unwittingly or not, really lending a helping hand to one of the key motivations and helping Russia to achieve one of the goals that it got to do nearly 10 years ago now.
And treason in this country is like the top crime, like punishable by death. It's not a
Yeah.
small accusation. Um, I the president's obviously trying to distract from Epstein. We saw, I mean, he's posting stuff. There was this meme, Senator, did you see this? This meme that he posted with it's Obama's face in a white Bronco to look like O.J. Simpson, and the president's behind him. And then there's the cartoon version of J.D. Vance that is not a flattering uh, it's not a flattering picture of JD Vance in a car behind them, and he's posting this stuff. He's also going on rants about how he's calling for, Kamala Harris and Oprah Winfrey and Beyonce to be prosecuted. But here's the thing I come back to. The big question I just cannot let go of. Let's say that any of this is true. Let's just say that any of this is true, which we've established contradicts everything that the intelligence agencies have said to us.
Mm-hmm.
The Supreme Court ruled in a case brought by Donald Trump that presidents have absolute immunity for acts committed as president within their core constitutional authority. So tell me how anybody could go after Obama. I mean, do you think that we're actually going to see any kind of effort to prosecute him?
I don't. I don't for in part because of the reason you said, but to my mind, this is not an effort that they want to culminate in charges. I think, despite all of their delusions and all of their conspiratorial talk, they know that actually pressing this to culminate in criminal charges will cause a lot of problems for them. And they'll have to substantiate these baseless allegations. They would have to substantiate these baseless allegations in a court of law. They would have to convince a judge and ultimately a jury. They know they can't do that. I think this is about something else. And what I always think about to analogize this is one of the core scandals of the first Trump term, and that was President Trump's relationship with President Zelensky and how he basically tried to shake down President Zelensky. Of course, they had their July 2019 phone call. President Trump asked for dirt on Hunter Biden, and in turn for anything he could use against Joe Biden in the upcoming election. And his advisors later, in their discussions with Ukrainians, basically said, "Look, you don't need to bring actual charges against Hunter Biden or any Hunter Biden associates. Maybe just start an investigation, just launch an investigation and kind of muddy the waters, like throw some chum in the waters, something we can point to. These were basically what they were telling the Ukrainians, and I think they're trying to do something here. They don't actually want to bring charges because of all the reasons we've talked about. They just want to have what has been launched, this DOJ strike force, quote unquote, I think they're calling it. They just want basically the chum that they've thrown out that they can point to, um, so that, it gives people something to latch their conspiracy theories onto. And I think they've really gone as far as I think they will go. I don't think they're even going to conduct, sort of law enforcement interviews, do the kinds of things that you would do in the course of a normal investigation, because I think it would probably create more problems for them than they want. They've accomplished their goal. They've muddied the waters. They've given their base something to believe in, and unfortunately, as is so often the case, it is something that is purely BS.
So I'm going to list four things that have come to mind that this has accomplished for the Trump side of the ledger. First of all, Tulsi gets back into good graces when she hasn't been. We've talked about that. Secondly, Trump was convicted on 34 counts. I believe that's correct. And now it kind of shows that the other president, they're just as crooked as Trump is. It diverts from the Epstein situation. And it gives Russia a scratch on the back for what they've done. And we can show all sorts of scratches from JD Vance getting up at the G7 saying, all the democracies are bad, but Russia, they're okay. That dictatorship's just fine. Or saying to Russia, geez, we'll give you 50 days, and if you don't straighten up with Ukraine, then we're going to throw a bunch of tariffs on you. By the way, we don't do any trade with them anyway to speak of. And so those are the four things. It reinstates Tulsi as in the good graces of the president, shows that everybody else around Trump is just as crooked as Trump is as far as being a convicted felon, pivots off the Epstein stuff, which has been a real pain in their ass because he said he was going to release the files and has done anything but, and scratches his good buddy Putin on the back for what happened, whether it was 2016 or some other time. What else? What am I missing? Is there something else in there that we get?
I would say yes, and I would add one more. Tulsi Gabbard, in laying out these allegations, talked about a vast conspiracy, essentially to, I think her words were, subvert the mandate of President Trump. And so I think what they're trying to do in a way is to create sort of one boogeyman and to say, this person and the cabal of conspirators, these are the individuals who are responsible for any and all failures that President Trump had during his first term. These are the people who are continuing to hold us back, to hinder the progress that we're trying to make for the American people. They're basically trying to create this catch-all. This catch-all that they can blame all of their failures, all of their shortcomings, all of the scandals that they're facing on, and to basically say, look, it's not our fault. We have faced opposition from even before the inauguration by people who didn't want President Trump to be president and people who are working every single day to keep him from achieving the success that he should be having. It's really convenient. It's a really convenient way for President Trump to dismiss all of his failures and to blame his, arch nemesis and that of his MAGA movement, President Obama.
I know we don't have a ton of time, but I have a few strings I want to pull on, Ned. First of all, you published this op-ed in Fox at Fox News. Was that intentional?
Yeah, very intentional. Look, I'll be honest. I probably wouldn't have written it for any other outlet because, I try not to put my name to things that doesn't sort of advance an argument or put out sort of new or novel arguments. The arguments I put forward in there, we basically been making the case for 8 years. Every time we would hear some of these crazy allegations that were, various strands of them had been floating around for a while. But I thought there was one audience that needed to see it all in one place and needed to hopefully hear it. and that was, the Fox News audience, the people who actually believe a lot of this. I don't have a whole lot of hope that I was able to convert a lot of hearts and minds. And judging by my, Twitter mentions, I did was, make at least a few of them mad. But I thought it was worth trying. When we stick to our own sort of spheres and only preach to the converted, I don't think we do ourselves or others any favors. And so this at least was a modest attempt at doing that, and actually appreciate the fact that Fox was willing to publish it. They didn't have to. Ultimately, they did.
And then, I mean, you stepped down very early in the first Trump administration, but made a mention of the fact that you'd worked for, both Republican and president, or sorry, Republican and Democratic presidents and administrations. So I'm wondering, like, do you still have friends on the inside? And if so, like,
Uh,
what do they say to you? What are they saying about what's
yeah.
happening?
Yeah, look, I have a lot of friends on the inside who are in career positions, people who have been there for years, who have served under, President Trump, the first term, President Obama, in some cases going back to George W. Bush. And I actually started at the CIA under President George W. Bush. Um, Look, there is a chill that has I think settled across so much of the bureaucracy, and I think a lot of people are afraid to talk even to their friends about the full extent of what they're facing on the inside. But the simple message that I so often hear is, you're reading a lot about what we're facing on the inside, but it's actually so much worse. And there has not been a full accounting of what we're seeing, what we're hearing, what we're being asked to do. And I hear that from, I don't want to overstate it, but quite a few of the friends and former colleagues that I still talk to. These are people who are not going out there and leaking and spreading these allegations, but these are clearly individuals who are facing a lot of pressure, under a lot of stress, and I think who face a very difficult decision about whether to stay and ultimately, try and serve their fellow citizens and the country, or whether it's time to pack their bags and leave. In many cases, after years, if not decades, of service.
So what's all this has come out. What's the downside for the country long term?
Look, I think the downside.
Let me rephrase that. What's the
Yeah.
downside for the short term and long term?
Yeah. Look, I think the downside is that basically every single institution of government is going to be painted in a partisan light. And, that obviously has started years ago. And I think it accelerated into the first Trump term and clearly during this Trump term. But what pains me as a national security professional is this idea that even institutions and organs like the Director of National Intelligence, like the Central Intelligence Agency, um, they're going to be seen by the American people as organs of a partisan government. This sort of seen in the same light as the White House press secretary. Clearly it's a position that has political motivations, partisan motivations, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. That shouldn't be the case with the Director of National Intelligence, the CIA director, with others in the national security realm, like the Secretary of Defense. And we need not even get into him because that's a whole other hour's worth of conversation. But to sort of have all of these individuals and their institutions seen as nothing more than puppets of a highly political organization, that is long term, if not generational damage for the way in which Americans see their government and see the organs that are supposed to protect them day in, day out.
Okay, we try to leave on a hopeful note. So when you look at all of this, I mean, what gives you hope?
Look, I will say there's not a whole lot of room for optimism, but I think one element that consistently does give me hope during the first Trump term, and now being out of government during this Trump term, I've spent a lot of time teaching, working with students, working with young people, and the number of people who still reach out and tell me virtually every single day they want to go into government, they want to serve their country. They are not deterred by the craziness that they're seeing emanate from the White House and other parts of our government. They are determined to help us move beyond this chapter and ultimately be part of rewriting the story and writing the next chapter. That's what gives me hope. Part of me thought that the generations of younger early career people would be deterred, would be so disgusted by what they're seeing that they would throw up their hands and say, I'm going to go to Wall Street and try and make a lot of money or become a lawyer in the private sector. But anecdotally at least, I don't hear that happening. And with every person who reaches out to me who says, "Hey, can we meet for coffee? I want to hear about your time in the public sector and government and figure out how I can make my own contribution." That's at least a small piece that gives me hope going forward.
It's good. Well, it's good. First of all, what are you doing now? What are you doing these days?
So I'm teaching. I'll go back to university life in the fall, and also working with some organizations who are trying to focus on foreign policy, national security, trying to help us chart our way out of this mess. So we've got a lot of work to do next 3.5 years to hopefully be ready should the American people, give us another opportunity to go back into government. I certainly hope that's the case, and doing all I can to help us be ready.
So you're 2 years younger than my daughter. You're 43 years old. About are conditions right? Will you ever go back into the intel world in the government?
Absolutely. I would, in a heartbeat, go back into government and would go back into wherever I could be of most use. I've spent my career in the foreign policy and national security sector. And to me, there is no greater reward than showing up at the office every single day and knowing that what you're doing at least has the potential to make life safer, more secure, healthier, more prosperous for fellow citizens. It's just a real reward. You don't get that reward in terms of salary or in terms of recognition or in terms of work-life balance, but you do get it in the nature of the work that you're asked to do and that you're given the opportunity to do. So I hope I have that opportunity again.
So do I.
All right. Thank you so much, Ned, for joining us, Ned Price. We just appreciate your time, and we hope you come back and we can chat about all this whenever you want.
Would love to. Good to see you both. Thanks
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I mean, I could have talked to Ned all day. There's no difference from any other episode. I have a lot more questions, but he's served in so many roles, with the goal of keeping our country safe and informed and protected. And I just think it's so valuable to have his insight.
Absolutely. And the fact that he talked about the intel community has challenges with the domestic population, which is, there's no doubt about that. I mean, the truth is that I don't want, excuse me, I don't want the government spying on me, and I don't want the government spying on my neighbors. I don't want them spying on the bad guys. Um, but there's that out there because there's capacity to do a lot of spying, and so there has to be controls on that. And we've talked about that with previous guests on this podcast. And then probably equally disturbing is the fact that when you have the director of national intelligence stand up and not tell the truth, and she's the head of national intelligence, our foreign partners look at that and go, just not trustworthy. We're just not gonna give information. And then this is one thing, but the potential for attacks on this country or have been here for the last, well, God knows, probably my whole life, but for sure the last 25 years. And and without those allies out there feeding information, it makes us less safe because you've got a person that gets up and wants to politicize our national intelligence. Man, I'll tell you, it just pisses me off. I'm going to tell you because the downside of this is so much bigger than somebody standing up the microphone and making up a bunch of stuff about an election, by the way, that in a bipartisan way was settled years and years and years ago. But because they want to pivot away from Epstein, make it so Epstein isn't the news anymore, make it so that Obama or Clinton or whoever the hell you want to talk about, Biden, got to remember Biden, is
Beyonce.
What?
Beyonce, Oprah
Beyonce,
Winfrey.
Oprah, right. I mean, what the hell? We just got to pivot because we don't want to come clean with a promise we've made. But what I will say is this happens all the time. The president gets up and says one thing and does another. It's the same with the Epstein files. It's the same with Russia. It's the same. Go down the list, the tariffs, all of it. Says one thing, does another. And he got caught this time with Epstein because his base said, this is bullshit. We want the information you said you were going to release it, and now you're not. And they're seeing through it. I believe they're seeing through it, but we'll see. We'll see what the impacts are long term.
Too, you talk about our allies, but I also think about our adversaries. And I mentioned
Yes.
in the last episode, they're watching the chaos. They're watching the focus on Beyonce and Oprah and all this stuff. And we can joke about Marco Rubio taking on janitor next, but when he's wearing all of those hats, jobs that are usually like whole jobs for whole people that take up all of their time. I mean, it just I don't know, that's something that keeps me up at night. What our adversaries are watching as a
Well, I mean, and then not to bring up Signalgate again, but so cavalier with information, it's really, really important. And then doesn't really respect the information they're given and treat it like it is important. No, this has no upside. It just has no upside. And it's unfortunate beyond my description.
Well, I guess all that's left is to talk about that hat you're wearing. Okay. I've been trying to figure it out the entire chat here. This
Yeah,
hat is an M with a heart and then DICH.
yeah.
I don't know. You gotta tell me what is this?
I cannot believe this. You're from Minnesota, you've got Greek heritage, and you don't understand what this is.
It's all Greek to me.
So this is how it was given to me, and there's a mountain in Italy, I believe it's in Italy, called Mount Dick.
Oh.
And so it loves Mount Dick. So this is a nod to all the dicks out there. Okay.
There seem to be a lot of them these days.
Yes, there does.
That is so wait, who gave you that hat?
I can't tell you. His name was Dick.
Oh. Okay.
All right.
Good. I like it. I like
Yeah,
it. All right. Well, we so appreciate. We had a lot of comments and feedback on our last episode. We were wondering if it was maybe like too in the weeds and too like, you know, nerdy or for policy wonks, but people really love to hear the inside of like what goes on in crafting our defense budget. So thank you to everybody who reached out about that.
I appreciate that because I told those two Hanyackers that I appreciated them coming on and thought they did a good job. But if we're getting positive, that means they did do a good job. And
Yeah, you weren't just lying. Yeah,
I
no.
just wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't gabberting you. Yeah,
Yeah, that
exactly.
right. They did a great job. It's a great episode, lots of information. We just so appreciate everybody who, tunes in, whether it's here or over a podcast or on Substack and supports us on that platform. It's great to have so much support. We want to thank everybody who's listening. We want to thank our guest, Ned Price, for having this chat with us. We want to thank our friends at Pearl Jam for letting us use their music. And all of you, our listeners and supporters, we will chat again soon.
Tally ho.